Challenges and Solutions in B2B Sales Development. Why B2B sales development feels harder now. B2B sales development is tougher than it was even a few years ago because buyers are harder to reach, channels are noisier, and the one good rep equals one good deal formula doesn't hold up anymore. SDRs are expected to produce more meetings and pipeline faster, while operating in markets where attention is scarce and trust is harder to earn. The result is predictable. Teams feel busy, but results don't compound. Two trends are colliding at once. First, buyers are doing more research on their own and engaging sales later, which means outreach has to add real value, not repeat what's on a website. Second, the internal complexity of B2B buying has increased, so even a perfectly booked meeting can stall if your team doesn't build enough coverage inside the account. At SalesHive, we see the same pattern across industries. The teams that win are the ones that tighten targeting, run consistent multi-channel execution, and treat sales development like an operating system, not a stack of one-off campaigns. Whether you build in-house or work with a B2B sales agency or SDR agency, the goal is the same: a modern outbound engine that reliably turns the right accounts into conversations. The modern buyer journey and the rep-free shift. Buyer behavior has changed in a measurable way. Gartner found that 61% of B2B buyers prefer a rep-free buying experience, and 73% actively avoid suppliers that send irrelevant outreach, which means low-quality outbound doesn't just fail, it can damage your brand and future response rates. At the same time, self-serve commerce is becoming the default. Gartner also reported that 83% of B2B buyers prefer ordering or paying through digital commerce, and 72% have completed a significant purchase fully online. In plain terms, buyers will self-educate and self-transact when it's easy, and they'll only engage a rep when complexity, risk, or internal alignment becomes the bottleneck. This is why traditional feature-first outbound keeps failing. Your SDRs and cold callers have to bring perspective, a credible hypothesis about what's changing in the prospect's world, what it costs them, and what good looks like for companies like them. If you can't do that, your outreach reads as noise, especially in email, where one generic blast can undo months of domain reputation work for a cold email agency or internal team. Multi-stakeholder deals require account coverage, not single threading. Even when you earn attention, the buying process has more people involved than most SDR programs are built for. Modern buying committees often include 8 to 13 stakeholders, which makes single-threaded prospecting a quiet deal killer. If your motion only engages one head of title and calls it done, you're building a pipeline that's fragile by design. The fix is operational, not philosophical. Treat stakeholder coverage as a core output of sales development. When we design outbound programs, whether as an outbound sales agency, a sales development agency, or alongside internal teams, we push for multi-threading across economic buyers, technical evaluators, and day-to-day users. This is also why meetings booked alone is a weak scoreboard. A meeting that doesn't expand into the account rarely becomes durable pipeline. Benchmarks are moving in the same direction. In 6 Sense's BDR research, teams average about 21 outreach attempts per contact across roughly 53 days, and multi-thread around 9 contacts per account. That's not permission to spam. It's a reminder that modern prospecting rewards structured persistence and account-based coverage more than clever one-liners. Channel benchmarks: what normal performance actually looks like. One reason teams thrash is they don't ground decisions in realistic channel math. Cold email averages about a 2% response rate, and cold calls convert to meetings at roughly 1%. Those numbers aren't a sign that outbound is dead. They're a sign that list quality, relevance, and follow-up are the real levers, especially for cold calling services and B2B cold calling services that live and die on conversation rates. If your strategy is send more or dial more, you'll mostly scale failure. The teams we see succeed treat each channel as part of a system. Email creates familiarity, calling forces fast qualification, and social touches improve recognition and trust. This is also where relying on email alone becomes an expensive mistake. When response rates are low, a multi-channel sequence is how you avoid leaving most of your total addressable market untouched. Use benchmarks to set expectations and manage execution quality. Then improve the inputs, ICP, data, messaging, instead of blaming the channel. A simple way to align the team is to put the baseline numbers in front of everyone, SDRs, AEs, and leadership, so you're optimizing the same reality. Modern outbound doesn't fail because it's too aggressive. It fails because it's too generic, too short, and too disconnected from how buyers actually decide. Cadence design, persistence without being annoying. The most common execution mistake we see is running short, shallow cadences and quitting after 3 to 5 touches. That's not respecting the buyer, it's forfeiting. If strong teams are averaging around 21 attempts across 53 days, stopping early almost guarantees your competitor gets the conversation simply because they stayed present long enough to be noticed. A better approach is to build 6 to 8 week sequences that mix calls, emails, and LinkedIn touches with clear intent for each step. Early touches should be high signal and specific. One problem, one trigger, one next step. While later touches can be lighter and value-led. A quick point of view, a relevant example, a concise question. This is how a cold calling agency or outsourced sales team can be persistent without sounding repetitive. Just as important, measure completion rates and enforce sequence discipline. Reps often feel like they're following up, but data shows they skip steps or stop once the first couple messages don't land. If you want predictable pipeline, you need predictable execution. Then iterate based on what actually produces replies, conversations, and qualified next steps. Messaging that wins. Stop writing marketing copy in sales channels. Another consistent mistake is treating sales copy like marketing copy. Busy executives delete jargon, feature dumps, and industry-leading platform language instantly. And it directly triggers the behavior Gartner highlighted, where 73% of buyers avoid suppliers that send irrelevant outreach. In outbound, clarity beats cleverness, and specificity beats polish. The standard we coach is simple: write like a human, for one person, about one problem. A strong outbound email should quickly establish why you're reaching out now, a trigger, what you think might be happening, a hypothesis, and what you're asking for, a small, low-friction next step. That approach works whether you're building internally, hiring SDRs, or partnering with a cold email agency to scale personalization without losing authenticity. Calling follows the same rules. Cold call services are effective when callers lead with relevance and curiosity, not scripts that sound like telemarketing or telesales. The best openers are short, grounded in observable context, and followed by a question that earns the prospect's correction or confirmation, which is the fastest path to a real conversation. Operational reality, ramp time, turnover, and better SDR scoreboards. Even great messaging can't compensate for a broken SDR operation. Average SDR ramp time is about 3.2 months, which means every hiring miss or resignation costs you roughly a quarter of productivity before you even get back to baseline. If you're treating hiring as fill seats fast, you're making pipeline volatility inevitable. Turnover amplifies the problem. SalesHive research has shown 83% of SDRs never hit quota, and average tenure is about 14 months. So many teams are constantly rebuilding capacity instead of compounding results. This is exactly why leaders underestimate the real cost of churn. It's not just recruiting fees, it's lost ramp, lost coverage, and lost pipeline momentum. Finally, don't measure SDRs only on meetings booked. When the only scoreboard is quantity, reps will push low-quality meetings that waste AE time and erode trust. Add quality metrics that connect to revenue outcomes. Show rate, meeting-to-opportunity conversion, pipeline sourced per SDR, and stakeholder coverage per account. That's how you build a sales development function that earns budget instead of defending itself every quarter. Scaling the inputs, data quality, targeting, and AI that helps, not hurts. Because cold email response is often only 2% on average, small improvements in targeting and data quality create outsized gains. Bad data wastes touches, burns domains, and sends your team into the wrong accounts with the wrong message. Treat list building services and B2B list building services like a revenue-critical function, not an admin task. We recommend segmenting by pain plus trigger, not just title. When segments are defined by what changed, funding, hiring, compliance pressure, new leadership, expansion, your outreach becomes naturally relevant and your personalization becomes faster. This is also where LinkedIn outreach services can add leverage because stakeholder mapping and account coverage are often easier in social than in an inbox. AI is best used for the heavy lifting, not for pretending to be human. Use it to summarize accounts, suggest angles, generate first drafts, and log calls. Then have reps personalize the final layer, opener, problem framing, and CTA based on real insight. Done right, AI helps an outsourced B2B sales team or internal SDR org move faster without turning messages into generic templates. Next steps: build in-house or use sales outsourcing to move faster. The practical decision most leaders face is whether to keep building internally or to accelerate with sales outsourcing. If your AEs are still doing first-touch prospecting, if you lack experienced SDR management, or if you need to test new ICPs quickly, partnering with an outsourced sales team can be the fastest way to stabilize pipeline creation without waiting through multiple 3.2-month ramp cycles. The key is choosing the right operating model. A strong SDR agency or B2B sales agency should bring a repeatable process for ICP definition, list building, multi-channel sequencing, call coaching, and continuous testing, plus reporting that ties activity to outcomes. If you're evaluating cold calling companies, look for proof of execution quality, conversation rates, show rates, and opportunity conversion, not just promises of more meetings. From our perspective at SalesHive, the goal is simple: build a modern outbound motion that's measurable, coachable, and resilient to buyer behavior shifts. Whether you outsource sales, hire SDRs, or run a hybrid model, start by aligning on benchmarks, building longer cadences, multi-threading accounts, and upgrading your scoreboards. That's the path to consistent pipeline, not heroic effort.